Here we have a class which has three properties. It has the ID, the name, and the email. And you can see that there's actually no functions or additional properties in this class. And in fact, in Kotlin, we don't even need to have the body. We can just remove the body and that would still be valid Kotlin syntax. What happens if we run this? Well, first of all, let's see what the code that we have. We have a customer variable which has values 1, Joe Smith at somewhere.com. Then we have a customer 2, which has the same ID, same name, and same email. And then we have customer 3 pointing to customer 1. Then we are going to print out the customer. We're going to print out the hash code. We're going to then see what the result of comparing customer 1 to customer 2 is, and the same of comparing customer 1 to customer 3. These three lines are calling three different methods. One of them is the toString, the other one is the hash code, and the other one is the equals. And all objects in Kotlin have these as extension functions, which we can see later on. So what happens when we run this? If we run, we can see that it's going to print out for us some pointer value, some address referencing that object. It then gives us the hash code. It then tells us that customer 1 is not equal to customer 2, but customer 1 is equal to customer 3, meaning that these are pointing to the same object. These two, while have exactly the same properties, they're not the same object. They're not considered equal. Now we could override this behavior by just selecting the appropriate methods and then overriding them. So for example, I could change the equal and do a one-by-one comparison of each field and then say that whether it is the same field, then it is the same object. But there's actually an easier way to do that in Kotlin, and that's by using an annotation which is a data annotation. So if I prefix this class with data, let's run this and see what happens. We now see that, first of all, the toString is much nicer formatted. It's actually printing out the values of the class, the properties. The hash code is still a number, but the difference also here is now with equals. Whereas previously equals was false, here it is true. So it's actually implementing the one-by-one comparison of the fields for us. So if we go ahead and change this, for example, to Joe Smith and rerun this, let's see what the result is. We can see that now the result is false. So by simply adding this data annotation, what we're saying to Kotlin is go ahead and implement certain behavior for us in this class and treat this class as what's called a data object or a DTO. DTO, which stands for data transfer object, which is very common. And this is the kind of class that we really should be using when we don't have any behavior, when our class is merely about transferring data around from one call to another. It's a very simple, useful annotation that we can use and just have the toString, the hash code, and the equals built in nicely. And of course, much like the normal classes, we can override the behavior of these. So I could change the toString, for example, and have that call JSON or any other representation. For now, let me just say, for instance, return this is overridden. And if we run this, we see that now we get our overridden version of toString.